the ode. So traditionally, the ode had three stanzas and it was set to music. Now, music is very important because even today in the ode, music plays a very big part. And we are going to look at the diction used in the ode that we're going to study today, that we're just going to have a look at. We're going to look at how diction, specifically referring to music, is also used, interestingly. So it was three stanzas then, and it was set to music. In other words, it was supposed to be sung. So you can really expect a very lyrical type of poem here. The three parts were the strophe, the antistrophe, and the epode. Now, the strophe was just like a general introduction to something. The antistrophe would be the chorus that came in. It literally means to turn back. The chorus would come back and sort of reply to the strophe. And then you have the epode, which is a kind of a conclusion. So it really goes back very far it comes from the days of the ancient Greeks, and it was sung as an accompaniment to a dance, so it's associated with song and dance, once again, lyrical. But lyric also means emotional, so there's also emotion involved, right? Today, closer to today, we talk about poetic pieces that gets performed with musical accompaniment. Now, as I said, later things changed a little in terms of the ode, but not too much. It remained lyrical. It remained something that was sung or recited. And in terms of poetry, it was an elaborately structured lyrical poem praising either an event or an individual. In this case, we're going to have a look at To Autumn, where Keats praises autumn and makes it a worthy subject of praise in comparison with the other seasons. He champions autumn as a worthy poetic subject. So it is then structured. We still find the three parts, right? But it's not as conventional and as traditional as it used to be, but still the three parts. And usually in the later poems, the later odes, it was about nature, very often about nature, that they were singing about. They gave an intellectual plus an emotional response to nature or aspects of nature, such as a season. It conveys exalted, very sort of high and inspired emotions. In other words, it's very profound, and it's also profoundly put, right? You see a lot of dignity in the writing. It's dignified. It is very sincere. There's no such thing as a bit of humor or tongue in cheek or something like that. It's just very sincere and dignified, and also imaginative, right? Keats made the ode very popular when in 1819 he composed 6 odes, right? In 1 year, 6 odes. There's the Ode to the Grecian Urn that you might have heard about, the Ode on Indolence, the Ode on Melancholy, the Ode to a Nightingale, the Ode on Psyche, and then, strange enough, it's not called Ode to Autumn, but just To Autumn. Now, To Autumn, this poem is seen by some as one of the most perfect poems in the English literature. It is, according to many, it is. And it actually asks for a very in-depth analysis, but we don't have time for that. We're just going to have a look at the ode as a form and see how it adheres to it. So then, the ode to Autumn by John Keats is obviously then a lyrical poem. It cannot be anything else. It must be lyrical, as I told you about the history of music and accompaniment. It is in the three parts, so he keeps the three-part structure, right? The strophe, the antistrophe, and the epode, although he doesn't call it that, but it is the introduction, the turning back, and then the conclusion. And it is a song of praise, as we said. It became a song of praise, and it is a celebration then of autumn. That is, in a nutshell, what this poem is about. So, if we look at the first part, it's the strophe. He introduces this season. I'm not going to analyze, but let's read it quickly. Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the thatch eaves run, to bend with apples the mossed cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd, to plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel, to set budding more, and still more, later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has overbrimmed their clammy cells. So can you see the elaborate praise given to autumn as a season in the first part? Comes the second part, which is the antistrophe, the turning back, which will traditionally be the chorus stepping in and giving us more information. It's more a reflection on what he has already said, and he gives us more detail. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor. Can you see how he now personifies autumn and aspects of autumn? Thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-reaped furrow sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while the hook spares the next swath and all its twined flowers. And sometimes, like a gleaner, thou doth keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press with a patient look. Thou watchest the last oozing hours go by. So a lot of personifications now. When he looks at autumn, he also sees autumn in various things around him, like in a field or in an orchard, or sitting there in a personified form somewhere. He sees autumn all over the place. And then in the epode, it's the conclusion where he pronounces autumn a worthy subject of poetry. He says, where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? Think not of them, thou hast thy music too. While barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue, then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn, among the river sallows, borne aloft or sinking as the light wind lives or dies. And full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne, hedge crickets sing, and now with trebles soft the red-breast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. Now we talked about lyrical, we talked about music. Just look at the words, the diction that he uses that actually refers to sounds. That's apart from the alliteration, the consonants, the onomatopoeic sounds, the actual sounds that come out of this stanza. Look at, for instance, the songs of spring, right? They have their music too. The wailful choir of the gnats, right? And the loud bleat, for instance, of the lambs, and the singing of the hedge crickets, and the whistling of the redbreasts, and the twittering of the swallows in the skies. So can you see how he also brings in all these sound devices and words related to music to give us the idea of autumn, worthy of praise, worthy of music, worthy of song, right? And that's it for today.